Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So, day 2 of spoiler season for Adventures in the Forgotten Realms continues on. But if you didn't see my last episode yesterday on Circle of Dreams Druid, make sure you check that one out to see the potentially new Gaia's Cradle as a creature. And definitely make sure you don't miss my episode on Treasure Chest, the very first legal commander card that says roll a d20. And especially if you roll a natural 20, some amazing things can happen with this. Also, make sure you check out my most recent episode on the new Wish card named Wish. On this episode, I talk about why, in my opinion, a card like this should work in Commander. But before you check those episodes out, make sure you watch this episode first. And this episode is on what is potentially the best mono white commander ever with Oswald Fiddlebender. Yeah, you might think mono white is pretty weak, but just wait until you see Oswald and what he can do. So with all that said, let's jump into it. First up, a big thank you to MTG Goldfish for the translation of this card. Oswald Fiddlebender is a 2/2 gnome artificer that costs 1 and a white. It has enchant item, pay a white, tap, sacrifice an artifact, search your library for an artifact card with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrifice artifact's mana value, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle, activate only as a sorcery. That's right, mono white just got an artifact birthing pod commander. Just when you thought that you've seen everything, good old Oswald Fiddlebender, and again that's a fantastic name, comes out and surprises you. This is an artifact tutor engine, and yes, it can be incredibly powerful. This commander can be built in a lot of different directions, but overall, it's just a fantastic toolbox commander that can go get whatever artifact you need for the situation that you're in. What happens if you need mana? Who says mono white can't ramp? Oh, okay, usually that's me, but Oswald Fiddlebender can fix that for you. Sacrifice an artifact, go get a slightly bigger artifact that is a mana rock. Need to draw some cards? Go get one of your draw engines. Need some protection? Oswald can go get you that as well. How about a finisher? Oswald can tutor that up too. Now, obviously, like Birthing Pod and Prime Seeker Vannifar, you are limited to tutoring for something that is 1 plus the sacrifice artifact's mana value. Or at least I should say the other ones are creatures, this one's artifacts, you know what I mean. Regardless, there are plenty of ways to work up that chain by sacrificing an artifact and then sacrificing another one to get progressively bigger artifacts. And of course, there are some really broken things that you can do with this commander as well. But while we're talking about the chain, let's just talk about some cards that can illustrate just how effective this commander can be. Now for the purposes of talking about a pod chain, let's just start off at the lowest mana value for an artifact, which would be 0. So something like an Ancient Den would fit in that requirement, or even like a Mirror token or a Clue token, etc, etc. Although you are starting off the chain at the bottom, tokens can be a fantastic resource that you can just create with other cards, and then you can utilize with your commander. Now, you're only going to be going up one spot in the chain to something that's got a converted mana cost of 1, but there are plenty of fantastic options like, Soul Ring and Skull Clamp. And I would most definitely sacrifice a Mirror token for either of these. Soul Ring, of course, is the most played card in Commander, and it is a hyper-efficient mana rock. I'm talking way too efficient. It's a 1-mana mana rock that taps for colorless. And then Skull Clamp is an equipment that costs 1, and it says equip creature gets +1, -1, and whenever it dies, and you just basically paid 1 mana to draw 2 cards. So yes, you can make use of those mirror tokens in other ways as well. Now, I'm not saying we should be sacrificing these to work further up the chain, but you might have to at a certain point. Regardless, you're probably going to have other choices. Anyways, if we work one more step up the chain, we've got fantastic choices like Illusionist Bracers, Magerite Stone, and Swiftfoot Boots. Illusionist Bracers is an equipment that costs 2, and it costs 3 to equip. It says whenever an ability of equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, copy that ability, may choose new targets for the copy. So we just get this out, put it on our commander, and then when we activate our commander, we're getting its trigger twice. And that's a fantastic way to get additional value and to get extra pod chains going on. And speaking of extra value and speeding up pod chains and getting extra pod chains, there's Mage Stone. It has to pay 1 and tap it, untap target creature that has an activated ability with tap in its cost. Obviously, our commander meets that requirement, so yeah, just pay 1 extra mana to basically use our commander's ability again. Now, yes, it does cost a white to use that ability, but yeah, that's not really a lot in the grand scheme of things. The amount of value that it can provide us is absurd. Another card of the 2-drop slot that can be fantastic is Swiftfoot Boots. It says equipped creature has hexproof and haste. So this protects our commander on top of allowing our commander to actually activate right away if it ever gets dealt with and we can re-equip it. Again, Fiddlebender can be a fantastic toolbox commander that gets us whatever we need for the situation that we're in. And again, being able to use his ability right away or being able to reuse it with something like Mage Stone can really make a huge difference. So what other cards are out there that can help us take more advantage of his ability? Well, of course, first up there's Thousand Year Elixir, which is an artifact for 3 that says you may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures have haste. And on top of that, by paying 1, we can untap target creature. So, like Swiftfoot Boots, this lets us activate our commander's ability right away, and like Mage Stone, it also lets us untap him. So yeah, this is a fantastic part of our chain at the 3-drop slot. And other cards that we might still want to consider, though they are less effective, are ones like Puppet Strings and Jandor's Saddlebags. Puppet Strings has pay 2 and tap, you may tap or untap target creature, and Jandor's Saddlebags has pay 3 and tap to untap target creature. Once we're set up with some hyper-efficient mana rocks, we'll be able to generate a lot of mana in a turn, and it very well might be worth activating one of these to get an extra use out of our commander. Regardless, of course, there are even more ways that we can take full advantage of our commander. For example, let's talk about cards like Thornbite Staff and Genesis Chamber. Thornbite Staff says, equipped creature has pay 2 and tap. This creature deals 1 damage to our creature or player, and whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap this creature. So now if a creature dies, including one that we actually sacrifice with our commander is going to untap. And that's where a card like Genesis Chamber can come in. It says whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, if Genesis Chamber is untapped, that creature's controller creates a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token. So essentially with Thornbite Staff attached to our commander, we can sacrifice an artifact to start a new chain if we want to, or we can just sacrifice the new artifact creature we just got. So we can continue on that chain or start on the new chain. We've got a lot of options. Basically, we can just keep paying white to go up the chain again as long as we're sacrificing an artifact creature. And in a somewhat similar way, let's talk about cards like Draw Scorpion and Liquid Metal Torque. Draw Scorpion is an artifact creature that says whenever it or another artifact creature is put into a graveyard from play, you may untap target artifact. Now, obviously, with that last combo that we talked about, if we add Draw Scorpion in there and we've got a mana rock that taps for a white or more than a white, well, we're going to be in a great position. But even without those two previous cards, Liquid Metal Torque and this work fantastically together. Liquid Metal Torque has tap for colorless, and it also taps and target non-land permanent becomes an artifact influence other types until end of turn. So if we make our commander into an artifact, Draw Scorpion can actually untap our commander whenever we sacrifice an artifact creature. But again, even without Liquid Metal Torque, Draw Scorpion can have a huge impact on the game, untapping mana rocks and such. In a similar way though, let's talk about Clock of Omens and Liquid Metal Coating. Clock of Omens says tap 2 untapped artifacts you control, untap target artifact. And Liquid Metal Coating says tap target permanent becomes an artifact and shoots other types until end of turn. So essentially a non-mana rock version of Liquid Metal Torque. Again, by making our commander into an artifact with Liquid Metal Coating, if we're keeping the chain going, each artifact that we go and get can be one of the 2 artifacts that we tap to untap our commander. So yeah, there are a lot of ways to make even more use out of our commander's ability. And again, the more times that we can activate our commander, the better. This is a toolbox commander that can help us out in whatever situation that we're in, so having options is always going to be a good thing. So now let's move on and talk about some high value plays and some high... First off, there are artifacts out there that actually want to be sacrificed, like Ugin's Nexus. It's a legendary artifact for 5 that says if a player would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. And if Ugin's Nexus would be put into a graveyard from the battlefield, instead exile it and take an extra turn after this one. So yeah, this can shut down your opponent's extra turns, and when you're ready to take your own extra turn, you just sacrifice it with your commander, go get something bigger, and yeah, have fun with your extra turn. And then Mirrorworks is another card that can have a huge impact on the game. It's an artifact for 5 that says whenever another non-token artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that artifact. So now whenever we tutor for 1 artifact, we're getting twice as many. So this can be effective in a lot of ways. Again, with those artifacts that untap our commander, well, we can get extra activations out of those. Or even more simply with mana rocks, yeah, we're going to be ramping even quicker, and sometimes we're actually going to net mana by doing this. But even a simple and low mana cost artifact like Meekstone can have a huge impact on the game. It's an artifact that costs 1, it says creatures with power 3 or greater don't untap during their controller's untapped steps. So we just sacrifice a token, go get this, and we can basically just, shut down our opponent's big creatures. Luckily, our commander only has 2 power, so it gets under this. Regardless, some other high value cards to consider are ones that get us back artifacts. Scrap Trawler says whenever it or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser mana value. So in a way, this is kind of like a reverse pod chain. Let's say we sacrifice an artifact that costs 2 mana. We can go search our library for something that costs 3 mana and get it into play, and we also get something that costs 1 mana or less from our graveyard back to our hand. So because of this, we're basically getting free additional resources. Speaking of which, let's talk about Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle. It's a 2/2 bird cleric with flying that costs 3 and a white. It has, whenever you cast a historic spell, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So with this in play, whenever we actually cast one of our artifacts, we now get something else back from our graveyard for free. And of course, that could definitely be a high impact creature again like Scrap Trawler. But of course, we can just get everything back that we've sacrificed with Open the Vaults. It says return all artifact and enchantment cards from all graveyards to the battlefield under their owner's control. Though, keep in mind that you need to be careful when you use this because it does affect your opponents as well. Regardless, chances are pretty high that we're going to have the most things in our graveyard that this is going to get back. Another potential thing to consider with this deck are cards that have affinity like Sojourner's Companion and Mycosynth Golem. Sojourner's Companion costs 7 mana but has affinity for artifacts, so basically it costs 1 less to play for each artifact we control. And then Mycosynth Golem costs 11 but again has affinity for artifacts and says artifact creature spells you play have affinity for artifacts. Metalwork Colossus is somewhat similar, but it's going to cost X less to cast for the total converted mana cost of non-creature artifacts we control. Regardless, with an artifact-centric deck like this one, it's going to be very easy for us to get these in play quickly. And because of their high converted mana cost, we can chain out some pretty huge things. Things like Possessed Portal and Blightsteel Colossus. Possessed Portal says if a player would draw a card, that player skips that draw instead, and at the end of each turn, each player sacrifices a permanent unless they discard a card from their hand. With our commander's ability to tutor cards out, we're going to have plenty of ways to get value around this. Whereas our opponents might not be so lucky. And then of course, as you know, Blightsteel Colossus is an 11/11 with Trample, Infect, and Indestructible, and yeah, it's basically a one-shot killing commander. So maybe you get this out with some Swiftfoot Boots and have some fun. Or again, with this commander, you can obviously just go get any easy 2-card artifact combo that you really want. So let's just say Basalt Monolith and Rings of Brighthearth. Essentially, this combo just generates infinite colorless mana, and yeah, there are plenty of ways to win from there. Regardless, easily get them for you. But now that we've talked about some cards that work with Fiddlebender, let's talk about what other commanders might want Fiddlebender in their 99. First up, I already mentioned Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle, and yeah, Fiddlebender could fit right into this deck. Oswald Fiddlebender is a historic spell, so yeah, you're going to be able to get that trigger. And then Fiddlebender can sacrifice artifacts to go get you key pieces that you need. Another commander that might want to consider him is Osgear the Reconstructor. Osgear has pay 1, sacrifice an artifact, target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. And by paying X and tapping him, exile an artifact with mana value X from your graveyard, create 2 tokens that are copies of the exiled card, activate only as a sorcery. So yeah, Osgear, Oswald is fantastic at helping out with that. And helping you get even better artifacts that you can then get in your graveyard to get more copies of, and you see where this is going. And actually, there are plenty of artifact-based commanders that can really utilize Oswald, so let's just bring up one more with Breya, Ethereum Shaper. Breya does a lot of things, so here we go. When she enters the battlefield, create 2/1/1 blue Thopter artifact. Creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn, or you gain 5 life. So Breya likes to sacrifice artifacts, and she can do a lot. But now it's time for me to wrap things up and give you my final thoughts on this commander. I really like the design of this commander, and I think that there's a lot of fun and exciting things that you can do with it. And of course, there's also some incredibly powerful and broken things that you can do with it as well. A commander that can tutor up artifacts can easily help you, tutor up the right 2 artifacts to combo off and win. Regardless, you don't have to build this in a combo direction, and this is a fantastic toolbox commander that can help you out in pretty much whatever situation that you're in. And I'm talking about both design and in power level. But only time will tell, and we will see just how powerful Oswald Fiddlebender is. And with that, this show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again, and have a good one.